All right, we are here to continue our budget discussions for fiscal year 2025 at this special work session of the Natrona County Commissioners. It's Monday, June 24th, 2024, 8:23 a.m. We left off, as I recall, with our maintenance. And so if everybody had turned to that tab. Madam Clerk, if you will confirm, let's see, I had us that we finished with the library and we were on the Hall of Justice.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay. So it's about 2/3 of the way through under your maintenance tab, Natrona County Hall of Justice. Madam Clerk, can you tell us where we stand on our current fiscal year expenditures?
Is there a particular account line you're looking at, Mr. Chairman?
Well, there are only 4 of them, so maybe you just tell us where we are on all 4
For
individually.
contract labor, we've expended $124,455. For utilities, we've expended $157,163. For buildings repair, maintenance, and cleaning, $29,516. And for capital, $8,434.38.
All right. One of the things we had talked about on, was it detention, but it was the Joint Powers Board and whether there's a split or potential for a split on any of these items. Commissioner North or Commissioner Laird or Madam Clerk, can we have some discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, I believe, and Commissioner North and Laird, please correct me if I'm wrong, but any of these items that are listed under the capital improvements would not fall under the Joint Powers Board for the Hall of Justice?
Is that your understanding too, Commissioner North?
That's been kind of my understanding as far as capital improvements. There are some exceptions to that as far as.
Well, yes, a lot of it depends on what the city occupies, and if you notice, this is for ceiling tile replacement on the second floor, which is the sheriff's office, an emergency management door install, and carpet on the 5th floor.
Yeah.
So
The
that may,
carpet on the 5th floor is city, and so that may be something that we could ask for, that we could request, but the others on the second floor, no, we could not.
but I think we need to verify the carpet on the 5th floor if it's for the city portion or if it's for the
Yes,
child support
that's their
enforcement.
court. Yeah, that's where they have their
courtroom? Okay.
courtroom. So that's the reason why. The 5th floor, we could request
Thank you.
What
that.
about the basement? If there's anything need to be done there, that's where they park all their cars.
Well, this was Garrett's request, and he's the facilities director, so I would think that if he had anything that needed to be done in the basement, he would have added it.
Yeah, so the 5th floor is the one that we could request them share.
And first,
What about the repair and maintenance item of $26,000? Is that shareable under the Joint Powers Board agreement?
Not under the joint, Mr. Chairman, as far as I know, not under the Joint Powers Board agreement. However, I do bill the city for their proportionate funds for any expenditures taken out of those account lines. They get billed quarterly.
So I think without our maintenance director here, I think that we shouldn't unilaterally reduce these, but I think that Commissioner North, if you could be tasked with following up with Garrett, so that to the extent some of these may be billable under the Joint Powers Board agreement, that's done. And Madam Clerk, if you can also help coordinate with that, that would be great. But I think we probably leave these as is otherwise. Is there any other discussion or approach?
Just a comment. I've always wished that we would have a document that reflected exactly what the 60-40 split is and what it's attributable to, because there's always confusion every time we get into this deal. And we just get a document that they agree to, be endorsed by you and the city manager or the mayor, and these are the 60-40 splits. Then we just don't have to have these conversations anymore. But every time we get into this, we do have a conversation. It's a thought.
Commissioner North, thank you for your thought. I agree. We come back to this issue about 3 or 4 times a year. And I know that the liaisons to the Joint Powers Board typically have a little bit better handle on this. And I was one of those individuals for 9 months. I will ask our county legal for a memo on that for this and future commissions.
There's a couple others that I'm gonna check on too with Garrett. One is the elevator service agreement, because that services the entire building and not just,
And that's $19,450.
yeah, just to see, that's one thing that I would like to see us take a look at specifically, because that does service all 5 floors. It's not just one. So, it's just like when we replace the openers for the front door, that services the entire building. That's not just a single portion, so.
And I will say, Mr. Chairman, in some of our meetings, the city's representatives didn't know exactly how it applied either. And then it said there's a delay and problems, you don't get a vote in, and then somebody's got to go check it out. So if we could get that thing figured out, that'd be wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, if we do determine that this should be a Joint Powers Board expense, I would like to keep our portion of the expense in the budget request.
And my thought is that because of the uncertainty right now sitting here, we ought to leave it as requested. And if we over budget, for these few items, that's a good thing. And next year, we'll make sure our maintenance director is clear and that we're all clear. So,
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns on that particular building? Then moving to the,
It would apply, Mr. Chairman, to the jail and all of that as well, because there are certain portions of that we built, certain that the city came in, and so you hear, well, the city will only pay for the hall we're walking down and it won't pay for this. So I think we ought to get that organized as well, because that's also an issue.
yeah, and that was going to be my request of the of our county legal department. So that's all part of the Joint Powers Board agreement. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. It's great. All right, let's move on to the morgue. Questions, comments, concerns about that?
Mr. Chairman, I just bring up the capital improvements. It looks like it really hasn't been expended, and it went from 2,500 to 5,000. I don't know where we're at this year, but maybe taking that back down to 2,500 if it's not needed. I know it's not a big cut, but.
Yeah, Madam Clerk, would you run through those 4 line items for the morgue?
Certainly, so for contract labor, $3,618 has been expended. Utilities services right at $7,000. Buildings repair, maintenance, and cleaning, $3,368, and capital 0.
Very good. The capital improvements on the itemized sheet it's not stated or not specified. I'm not aware of any capital improvements upcoming or on the drawing board. That might just be a placeholder, so I'd sure be fine with reducing that $2,500. Any heartburn with that? Reducing it from 5,000 to 2,500? All right, let's go ahead and do that. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on the morgue building? Then we'll move to Townsend Justice Center. Madam Clerk, I'm just going to ask again if you can run through those 4 items,
Sure.
where we're at currently.
Contract labor, 138,928. Utility services, 136,059. Buildings repair, 30,674. And capital, 36,409. And Mr. Chairman, in the worksheet that Garrett provided us, it says circuit courtroom chairs. It should be district court.
Right. Very good. My thought is, although we're under budget on all of the items for the current fiscal year, when I look at the itemized sheet, and we know that contract labor did go up, we have a really busy building over there. A lot of people are in and out of it, a lot of staff in and out of it. I don't think we should reduce any of these amounts personally, but what's the commission's pleasure, Commissioner North?
I think we ought to leave his request right where they are. I don't think we need to change them. He did request quite a bit less, $30,000 or $35,000 less than what he did last year, so I would leave it right where it is.
I just want to point one thing out. There's a water leak in the roof somewhere over there, and they haven't fixed it. Do you remember that, Sheriff, when they talked about that? Do you remember where they said it was? Yeah, that needs to be addressed immediately. So if you're going to talk to Garrett, you might point that out. And I don't know what that'll cost, Mr. Chairman. That's why cutting down on certain things there might not be prudent. It may be an easy fix, it may not be one.
Well, my hope is that Garrett included that, or that there's room for that in the either the capital emergency repairs 15,000 or the repair and maintenance like 2,000. But we haven't received a supplement, so I think that's another reason to leave it where it's at, and then address the additional cost overruns if there are any on this. But I agree, it's an important item. Thanks, Commissioner Laird, for bringing it up. Anything else on that one? And then turning to Detention Center, JDC.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, Garrett said the water leak has been addressed and it's under warranty, so he is taking care of that at the Townsend. And just to backtrack a little bit, the carpet for the 5th floor in the Hall of Justice is for child support enforcement, so it would not be a joint powers board expenditure.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thanks, Garrett. So we're looking at Detention Center and JDC. as of May 3rd, our capital improvements was well under the budgeted amount. I think I remember a couple reasons for that, but Madam Clerk, where are we at currently on that line item?
Well, I gotta find it.
Okay,
Maybe.
There's the man who's gonna fix the leak, or has fixed it.
hi Garrett, I didn't see you slip in here, welcome.
All right, Mr. Chairman, for contract labor, $16,185. Buildings repair and maintenance, $128,560. And capital improvements, $361,709. Now, I will tell you that on the capital improvements, we did use some of that money for the roof, our portion of the roof.
Okay. So I had a note on capital improvements, which are requested at $92,451, that someone was gonna look at the Joint Powers Board agreement for the kitchen items. I don't know if there's any additional information on that, or if that's another one where we follow up at a later date. Any questions, comments, or concerns for the requested budget of $240,051 for the upcoming fiscal year for this building?
Looks appropriate to me.
Commissioner Norton?
Garrett, you want to come up or you want to stay back there? I was just going to ask you on the kitchen hood cleaning. That's just for the cleaning of the hoods, correct?
Right.
Okay,
So
so
twice a year.
okay, so that's just a maintenance, regular maintenance issue.
Regular
That's not,
maintenance.
that's not repair or replacement or anything like that.
No, sir.
Okay. Are there any other things in here that, like the library, boiler room, that we need to address, or have we got that all taken care of?
No, it should be taken care of. The JDC domestic hot water boilers will be covered with our carryover from the 1 cent.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that you have what you need. And the
Yes, sir.
county has what they need to get that, everything taken care of up there.
Yes, sir. With
And
this
and
building,
since it's
yeah.
for the library, please do it right away.
At the detention center.
Oh, that was a detention center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still do it if it's at the library, do it right away.
We're gonna do a lot of things right away.
All right. That's the
All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns on the JDC Detention Center requested budgeted amount? All right, I think we're good. Thank you, Garrett.
Yes, sir.
And that appears to be the last item under maintenance. Our next tab is Parks.
Mr. Chairman, you should have in front of you a budget amendment from Mr. Brown that I received I believe it was Friday.
Correct.
So I've not had a chance to look at it, so.
So I'll just give a little bit of background. I visited at some length with Mr. Brown Friday, and it is very difficult for him to hire seasonal employees out there for a variety of reasons. He would like to, and has by this letter, amended his request, and instead of 2 seasonal caretakers, replacing it with 2 full-time employees at the entry-level rate. My follow-up with him is, what could he do with 1? And he thought that was an option. It's not his preferred, but I think in light of all the other conversations that we've been having with all the other departments, that at least I needed to ask the question. You'll recall that the lake budget is a different beast in terms of how it's funded and how expenses are paid. That Mr. Brown understands that and has pointed out that there is a carryover, and I believe it's a significant carryover. So the bottom line is that he felt this was fiscally appropriate. I don't necessarily disagree. I would just make the general point that even if there's a carryover, that doesn't mean that this is what we spend it on. And I'm not taking issue with spending it or not spending it on this. I just think that that's a process that needs to be evaluated fully, and perhaps by the commission. I believe Mr. Brown has fully considered it and thinks that it's an appropriate expenditure use of, or to spend down partially the carryover, but I told him that I thought that there might be some discussion on that. So I will just open it up.
Mr. Chairman, I would just be very brief here, but I do think he does need to do that. And we have struggled with the lake in many aspects. It's been somewhat controversial, and if 2 full-time employees is what he needs, I would be in support of that.
Commissioner North.
As much as I don't like the position we're in, it has been increasingly difficult to get anybody out there to work as seasonal. And I do agree, we need to have those people, and the lake budget is a little different beast all by itself because of the way it's funded and everything else. So I'm inclined to go along with that. And my discussions with Michael also are that for safety reasons, it is better to have more than one person out there working by themselves. It's better to have 2 for a variety of reasons. So even though I don't really like the idea of increasing our employees right now, I do believe that this is a situation that's a little different than most, and that is something that we need to look into to make sure that we have our facilities taken care of. That's going to help as far as maintenance, because he'd have more people that he could rely on a regular basis. So.
I appreciate those comments. And agree with them in large part. My only final point is that once a full-time employee or 2 have been added to the budget, it's a challenge to reduce those employees over time if necessary. I know this is something that we can pay for in this fiscal year, but it's not a one and done type capital improvement. It's kind of signing on to a long-term proposition to add employees. So if the commission is comfortable with it,
Mr.
then
Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Mill.
So seasonal employees have their own problems as far as after the season, what we're responsible for and whatnot. So I'm glad we're looking at getting away from that. I would, looking at this though, and with your following along with your comments and Dave's, looking at things, I think if Mr. Brown's good with it, I'd go with one for now. He could always hire a third part-time if need be. But that looks, for now, see how it goes this year. And if he really needs the next one, then up it again. But I'd just go with one just this year, just to see where it falls out and see how it goes.
Commissioner Field, do you have any insight or opinions on this?
No, I would just agree with what Commissioner Milne just said. I'd go with one this year.
Commissioner North, Commissioner Laird, do you want to respond to that?
I understand the conservative nature of this, but what I would really like to hear from is Mr. Brown as to why he asked for two, and it sounded to me like when you talked to him about it, and you mentioned one to him, it sounded that he didn't think that would be sufficient. So he knows what he needs out there, and I don't really. I'm sure Mr. Milne does, and maybe Steve does, but I don't. And so before we said no and closed it out, because now we're right in the deep six of the summer, where two people would help, I suppose. And then that's my only suggestion. I just like to hear what he has to say about it.
He didn't bring up with me safety concerns when I specifically asked for whether he could do it with one. He did say that one would be acceptable. Again, that's not his preference, and I agree with Commissioner North that there can be at times safety concerns. So I'm a little bit on the fence on this, but I think we need to move forward. Unfortunately, Mr. Brown is on scheduled vacation. He may not be available to weigh in on this right now. So I think we just need to make the decision one way or the other. And so, commissioners, does anybody want to add anything further or change the direction they're leaning?
Mr. Chairman, I think let's go ahead and approve one for right now then, and then look at it and see where we're at. And I think this is something that we still have an opportunity that we can come back and look at it and just see in the future. So I think we ought to go ahead and approve one for right now and then move forward with that and then collect more information. Have Mr. Brown have a chance to explain that to us a little better when he does get back from vacation.
When would this start, Mr. Chairman? Did he say? Is it immediate or?
Well, it would start at the next fiscal year and upon approval of our budget. So I would believe that he would start advertising immediately. Well, thank you, Commissioner North. And I do agree that we should be open-minded on this. And if Mr. Brown would like to come back and visit with us in the near future, that would be appropriate. Or this fall, whenever he decides that, he has more information for us.
And I guess that's where I was going with this is that, with the seasonal, he could actually look at hiring one right now and then next spring, we could reevaluate, see where we're at and advertise at that point for a full-time.
Very good.
Now, Mr. Chairman, also, I would wonder if he's gonna hire the seasonal people to be full-time, which means he'd have to discharge one of the seasonal people, which then kind of concerns me.
Well, he can't fill these are open positions. These seasonals are open positions. He has some seasonals out there. I think he's got 2, and he was wanting 4, or has been trying to fill those 2. But this is not a reduction of current employees.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. Madam Clerk, are you clear on that?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Other items on parks? Madam Clerk, can we, well, Commissioners, do you want to look at the lake budget or the mountain budget? We've been talking a little bit about lake. We can continue that, or if you want to just start at mountain, that was the first page in our spreadsheets. Then let's just go to mountains. Madam Clerk, can you tell me where we are at with regard to 7125 machinery equipment purchases?
$460.
Okay. And yeah, 8012, that was another one. Building, repair, maintenance, and cleaning.
15,645.
And motor fuels, 8501.
16,195.
And just above that, two above that, 8422.
12,617.
And 8650, trails expense.
4,406.
And RMP implementation, that's 9066.
$424.
Okay.
Mr.
Commissioner North.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make sure that, that we understand a lot of the costs that we've had up there that have been budgeted that we did not have this last year. It's like the grooming cost, a lot of our fuel costs from normal grooming. This last year was such a dry year, we didn't have a lot of these expenses that we'd normally have. So if you go back and look at the previous years, as far as what some of those expenses were and with the increased cost, those are they kind of level out on some of that as far as what we have to look at in the future. And with the, this year, we're going to have reduced costs during the summer months just because of the construction that's up there. But that doesn't mean that next year is going to be that way at all. So I just want us to take into consideration those when we are making these decisions.
Very good.
Was the trail expense, last year was 27,000. I do agree with Mr. North on what's happening this year with weather and the construction, but, I think it's gonna be, well, who knows, really. But let's see, back in 2022, it was only 9,000. 2023, it was 27,000, and now it's at 4. Or I guess that's at 4. I don't know what to think of that, actually. How that strikes everybody. Seems a little odd.
Things are busy up on the mountain, and I think in a long-term good way, but
Yeah.
short-term, it's kind of a mess up there, in that we've got multiple projects going on. I think one of the reality is that that's going to continue to limit Park's ability to get a lot of stuff done up on the mountain, which is a little unfortunate for the public, but it's a little fortunate for our fiscal year budget while those projects are underway. I can't remember the completion date for the road projects Mr. Hagler has going on up there, but I do believe the lodge project is going to be very minimum, 6 months, and probably to top it out, 9 months, best case scenario, especially considering things like weather. So my feeling is that we can make some reductions on some of these items. We may need to add some more back in. I think it's in part an opportunity for Mr. Brown to focus on, his department focus on completion of some of the projects that we have left on the table in terms of project funding, part of our discussion from last week. I think we can take off the RMP implementation, that's 9066, $38,500. I don't think we need to continue to carry that over. I think that that needs to go back to the drawing board and come back in front of the commission if and when Parks and this commission's ready to move forward on it. Is there any additional comment on that particular item? We have 3 fiscal years where it's been unspent but budgeted. So my feeling is that this is an appropriate time and an appropriate year to delete that one. Anybody agree or disagree?
I just think next year when everything gets reopened, it's gonna be, there's gonna be a deluge of people up there at every one of the facilities. So I don't know. That's why I say it seems weird. The whole thing seems weird.
I was gonna say, I agree with taking that out of there for now.
Okay, Commissioner Mellon's nodding, Commissioner North's nodding, so we'll remove that $38,500 item. The trails expense, I know there's quite a bit of work to be done up there, but with the expenditure being 4,400 of 42,000, it seems to me that we might be able to reduce that by 20,000. That would leave 22,000 for that line item.
Mr. Chairman, I was thinking more along the lines of maybe 12,000, just because our highest year was pretty close to 30,000. So just in case, the way I look at it, but we're still reducing it by 12.
I understand what you're saying completely, but with the master plan and the trail improvements that we have scheduled next year, they'll be able to kick off depending on what the weather is up there. There's a lot of trails that are right now on the drawing board that are ready to go. It's just a matter of being able to access and get up there and do it. So I don't have a problem with reducing it some, because we'll end up kicking it into the FY26 budget, but at least leave enough in there so we can get started next year. So I don't have any problem with reducing it some, but not quite that much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also agree with the $12,000 that shows us, gets us a little bit above what was expended before, but everybody's making cuts, so that's a place where it can be cut. And like Commissioner North said, some of this will bleed over to the next year, so they'll be able to parts and piece it a little bit more.
Yeah, it seems that it's really just been a placeholder of $42,000 for the last number of fiscal years. And if there was an expectation that it was going to be significantly more, or that it was going to actually be expended this year, that to the full extent, it might have been in the budget narrative, and I don't recall that it was in there. So I think 12,000 is a very reasonable reduction, and I would be in favor of that as well. Commissioner Laird, you're nodding.
Yeah, I would be in favor of it.
Okay, and Commissioner North, I agree that with what you said, but I think if we go 12 and if there's some remarkable opportunity. Mr. Brown can come back to us at some point this fiscal year. Otherwise, there might be, we might need to push it back up to $42,000 for fiscal year 26. But let's go ahead and reduce that by 12,000.
By 12,000 or to 12,000?
Bye.
By
Okay,
12,000. So
okay,
the
it's
remaining
30.
budget item will be 30.
Okay, I'm okay with that, that's fine.
Okay. Building repair, maintenance, and cleaning. We could reduce that by $10,000 or $20,000 if we wanted to. We will have additional, hopefully not repairs, but maintenance and cleaning once the new lodge is operational. But I don't think with it being under construction, we're going to have much need in that respect for that particular building this fiscal year. So I do think we can reduce that line item 8012.
The one of the notes I've got off the side is to use for outhouse roofs and replacement of that. And those are gonna be about, I'm not sure how many outhouses we actually have up there that we need to put new roofs on, but, that's gonna be about 3,500
Probably all of them.
per outhouse to do that, so.
All of them are required.
So on page 3 of his narrative for Mountain outhouse roof replacements, $25,000.
Commissioner Milne, would you repete that, please?
Page 3 of the narrative for the Mountain outhouse roof replacements, it's his third priority, and it's 25,000.
And the powder house roof is also on there, and that is in desperate need of being replaced. So that between the two of them, that would be 40.
Mr. Chairman, those requests that are on page 2 and 3 are in the equipment.
Yeah. That's not
39.
part of the,
Right, that was, and where we landed on that, when we visited about that line 7141-5-39 for parks. The requested was the 854,000, we reduced that to 157,500, which amount includes, per my notes, the outhouses and powder house.
right.
So Commissioner North, I think we're covered in for
Okay.
those items. on-
Yeah, as long as we got it covered, I just want to make sure.
So commissioners, is there any additional desire other than mine to reduce that $40,000 requested item for line 8012?
Let's reduce it down by 10.
10 or 20. I'd say
We've got 10 and we've got 20, and Commissioner North, Commissioner Laird,
do I hear a,
we
Rock, paper,
we
scissors.
come to somewhat of a consensus.
Mr. Chairman, again, I would just note that we have been as high as 25,000 into that, so if we reduce it by 10, we'd stay a little bit above our highest year, but it's not putting too much back into there.
yeah. I'd go with 10.
All right, I'm comfortable with that as well. Commissioners North and Laird, anything? You're okay with that? All right. Any other items on Mountain that the commission wants to address?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address motor fuels 8501. Just again, the highest year we've had it on that is 24,000 roughly. And it's been consistently at 35,000, but even if we reduce that by 5, it takes it down to 30, and you still got plenty in there. We've never expended up to 30. So I'd ask for a reduction on that at 5,000.
there's a couple of different things that come out of that. Mountain Fire also fills up. That's part of our agreement with them, is they actually fill up there. So if they have a bad season, that's something that will hit that. Obviously this last year we didn't groom very much, so we didn't use nearly as much fuel, not nearly as much plowing and everything else. So I'm hesitant just because we all know what happens when we have a normal winter. And this last one definitely was not that, so.
But the one before was
Yeah.
a nightmare, and it was 23,000. I do take your point on fire suppression, fuel cost. Knock on wood, we will never have that, but I think we're realists. We could address that if and when it arises, so I can see it both ways. Commissioner Milne?
I'd go down to 30.
Reducing it by 5,000.
Yeah.
Commissioner North, Commissioner Laird. All right, we'll remove $5,000 from that item. 8501. Anything else on Mountain, Parks Mountain?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Friel?
I'm gonna need to excuse myself at this point.
Yes, thank you. We will press ahead and see you later. Okay, let's turn to Parks Lake. Okay,
Excuse me.
you're gonna be back.
With recess, I think.
All right, we're gonna take a quick recess, maybe 5 minutes.
Are we gonna get to the sheriff today? Yeah, we should do it next.
I'm okay with that.
I don't like making him sit here for 3 or 4 days. He's got a deal to run.
Your microphone's on.
Oh,
We're talking about you and thankful that you've been able to hang out with us a little bit, and just out of respect, we'll try to do you next if that's all right. All right, thanks for, I thought we were gonna get to you last week, and clearly we didn't get close, but, yeah, we'll do you next. Low hanging. All right, we are back, continuing our budget discussion. We are at the Parks Lake Funds budget. Madam Clerk, if you would let me know where we are at, starting at the personnel training, line 7051, down to grounds maintenance landfill 8011. I think there are about 7 items there, 8 items.
From 7051.
Starting with, yeah, 7051.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, to date expended for that account line is $2,294. Repair and maintenance, $1,050. Machinery equipment, $7,834. Postage is $315. Stationery printing materials, $778. Utilities, $24,370. Grounds maintenance, $90,082.
Thank you.
Is that as far as you want me to go?
For now.
Okay. 90,082.
Do we, does anybody know why we're over $20,000? No, $15,000 on that?
I'm gonna run that real quick.
Because we were well under it back May 3rd.
Right.
We're well under the budgeted amount. And I guess budget, we are over 20,000.
Well, and then we went over on the sewer expense as well.
Commissioner Brown, which, oh, here we are. I don't have my glasses.
Sorry,
No, no,
8635.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, there's nothing that stands out. It's just garbage services for the most part. There's the removal of a mobile home, which was $6,350.
When did that occur? Roughly, when was it paid?
617.
Okay.
And then some just large waste collection bills, it looks like. They were running the first in August through October, they were 12,000. And then beginning in May, they went up to 15,000. Another one for 14,000. Maybe it's a, well, I was gonna say maybe it was a carryover from last June's expenses, but the first expenditure says July garbage services, so that wouldn't be the case.
Does the narrative contain a reason for the increase in machinery equipment? I see that it's proposed to go up 30,000. It's not one of the capital expenses which is covered elsewhere.
No, if he said something, I don't remember what he said.
Well, my notes, let me just make sure.
For machinery and equipment? Is that
Yeah.
what you're looking at?
Yeah, I don't show
Oh.
in my notes from our discussion with them. Well, my feeling is we could reduce $1,000 of the 3,000 requested from personnel training, line 7051, $3,000 from the repair maintenance, taking it from 10 to 7. I think we can, machinery equipment, I think we can keep it constant with last year's $15,000, which is still twice what was expended this year. So that would be a reduction of 30,000. From stationary printed equipment, no, sorry, stationary printed materials. I don't see why we need a level amount of $2,500 for the last 3 fiscal years when we haven't gotten over 1,000. So I think we could take off 1,000 there. Grounds maintenance landfill, seems like we could keep that the same as last year at 70,000, so a subtraction of 5,000 from that. Any thoughts on any of those items? That's 35. That's $40,000 total.
The only thought I have on that machinery and maintenance and all of that is you just never know when you're gonna get hit with something. I think that's why they've carried that load all these years, but
Well,
Well, it actually
And-
went up though. He's budgeted that one to
Went
go up
30.
yeah,
by 3 times.
yeah.
and one thing about the lake budget is that it's a unique beast because that's money that we take in from out at the lake and we can't use it anywhere else. And so that is the one thing that I think we need to take into consideration too, is that it doesn't really affect our general budget
Well,
because it is an isolated item on a lot of these things.
I recognize that, and I totally agree. But at the same time, our job is to spend the taxpayers' money wisely and prudently. And we have all heard from people out at the lake that pay their cabin fees, their trailer fees, their whatever fees that then goes into this fund. And if we're saying we're approving an increase on some of these items where we don't have sufficient information and we don't know whether it's a good idea or not, I don't feel particularly comfortable with that. So just because it's not coming out of our budget, we still, our job is still to make sure that it's expended. And if there's a carryover until the next year because we're not spending all of it, I think that gives us more flexibility to do big projects that everybody's going to be very grateful for.
But, and I'm not disagreeing with that, so maybe I said that incorrectly, or I agree that we need to spend the money wisely, because there's some things in here, some costs in here that he has projected out that I think are substantially higher than what they ought to be for particular equipment and things like that. So I do agree 100% that we need to spend it wisely. I'm just saying that if it's something that needs to be done, and Michael can actually tell us exactly what that is, then I don't have a lot of issue with it. That's really what I wanted to get across,
Okay.
is that this is a unique beast all by itself just because of the way it's set up and everything.
Commissioners, is there any, I'm just gonna say, is there any objection to reducing those line items by the amounts that I've mentioned?
No objection.
Tracy, are you want me to go back over those?
If you would, please.
So line 7051, reduce that by $1,000, leaving it at 2,000.
Okay.
The next item, 7101, reduce that by 3,000, so leave that at 7,000.
Okay.
The next item, 7125, reduce it by 30,000, so leave it at 15,000. Skipping down to 7406, reduce that by 1,000 to leave that at 1,500. And then skipping down a little farther, 8011, reduce that by 5,000 to leave it at 70,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that the one? Sorry,
You're fine.
Tracy, is that the one that you said we were at 90,000 right now?
Mm-hmm.
8011.
Yeah, that's
11.
8011.
So do we really want to reduce that when we're already 15,000 over?
I think so.
We're already 20,000 over budget.
Remember, we removed a trailer.
I know, but that was only $6,500. That wasn't a huge amount of that.
Well,
With the increased cost of garbage disposal and everything else, with the city raising the rates and the cost associated with that, that's the only reason why I'm asking that, is that we're already over on that particular one.
yeah, but we don't know why we're over and if it's reasonable that we are over. And certainly with planning for next year, I think that we can plan to go back to that amount where it is consistent with the prior year's budget and more than the years prior to that. So that's why I was thinking, even though we're over by $20,000, and I'm not exactly sure why, I think we can still target a status quo on that particular item.
Mr. Chairman, when a department goes over like that, shouldn't they inform us of that?
Well, a lot of times I think my understanding, Madam Clerk, is there's some communication with you or your office, and maybe on this one, there just hasn't been yet.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. And we are bottom line budgeting, so I go through and look at all the budgets, and if anything looks odd or over like that, I will reach out to the department heads and say, did something get misposted? That type of thing. But as far as that, each line going over, it's a bottom line budget. So if their budget bottom line's going over, then that's what spurs transfers and that type of thing. So
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, moving down to line 9059, grants. It's been a zero item for the last number of years, and there's a proposal for $75,000. That's Title 28, I think.
that's what it says in his narrative, yeah.
What is Title 28?
I have no idea.
You know what Title 9 is? Yeah.
I don't know what 20.
Wyoming statute federal, well, that's, one of those where I wish we had just a little bit more information. Oops. Well, it could be judicial and judiciary procedure, but it's probably not under federal law. I mean, I suppose it could be. I just have no idea or no recollection why that's the case in my notes from Mr. Brown's
It
discussion with us.
is, program allows projects with non-federal partners to investigate, plan, design, construct, operate, maintain, modify, or otherwise provide for enhancements of recreational facilities.
So does this pertain to the trailer, water sewer stuff?
There's
I don't
no
know,
search for what Michael wants.
Yeah, I'm not real sure what.
Let's come back to that. I'm getting some text from our legal department. So let me see if we can get some more information on that particular one. I do see the trailer court water line is a specific item 9076. So we do have a line item request for that. So commissioners, is there any, while we're waiting for more information on that, is there any?
Tracy, could you look up, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
For the interruption.
Tracy, could you look up 8635? and see why we're over double.
We have expended 38,607.
Is there any, do you see why maybe or anything, or?
Let me run that real quick.
We have a major repair somewhere? So we had fix the water, but that's not the sewer. So,
Hmm. A big expenditure was tornado surface aspirating aerator. Don't know what that is.
Hmm.
Um, there was a backup operator. An operator, equipment operator, it looks like.
oh, okay.
I don't know. Nothing else looks odd.
Did you guys get that figured out? Commissioner North and I were talking about capital expenses. Commissioner North?
Some of these items really need to be replaced immediately. And some of the other things, depending on what the costs associated with 9061, I think we would reduce that by about approximately 50K. We may have to come back and adjust that in the future, but that is something, so the total amount would be 200 instead of 250 on that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner North, can you be a little more specific per item or? Or just a total reduction?
Trying to look and see. That'd be your capital, 9061, your capital equipment.
Right, but.
Is there a particular
she's-
item or just the bottom line?
Well, I think the tractor cost and probably the gator costs are substantially higher than. And I say that because I just recently purchased a tractor for substantially less than that, that's approximately the same size. The gator cost is high in my estimation as far as what we actually need. The EPA requirements, I don't think we can change that. The picnic and fire rings, we have some of those already. I don't know how many of those we need to replace at this point in time. The 10 outhouse doors and frames, there's no way around that cost. They need to be replaced. And cost of those, for those type doors has gone up dramatically, and so has the cost of installation. So the only thing I can think of, if we do reduce anything, would be the gator and the tractor and the cost of the implements associated with that. I don't know if we can get to 50. I don't know if we can get 50 off of that or not.
We do 200 and then he can prioritize.
Yeah, I was thinking there might be some wiggle room on the 40,000 for picnic tables and fire rings.
Right.
So those three items, I thought, maybe he doesn't spend the full 95,000 by not getting all of the implements this year. But all that stuff adds up pretty fast. So those were the three places where I thought that there was room on the gator, the tractor implements, and the picnic table and fire rings. But I think if we can let them prioritize. That's probably a good idea. So commissioners, are we okay with that?
One thing about that, pushing off tables and firings and things like that is they've been pushed off before. And the fact is that they're trying to get a lot of this construction and everything done this year and not have to do anything next year. I don't know if that makes any difference to your thinking there. I'd like to see as much of it get done up there as possible and get over with. Because it's causing some disruption in the county right now, it's understood, but
No, this is out of the lake.
the lake,
Yeah, these are lake.
well, have they been pushed off? I thought they had been previously.
I think we can let them prioritize, put $200,000 toward that bundle. And next year in his narrative, he can let us know what implements he bought and which ones he still needs and how many firings he installed this coming fiscal year and how many he's still needing to install for the next fiscal year. So let's go ahead and reduce that by 50,000. Going back to the $75,000 for
Grants.
yeah, I'm trying to find where it is. Okay, here it is. No.
9059.
Ah, yes, thank you. I was looking at the other $75,000. So, yeah, looking at 9059, Mr. Brown, and legal advise that Title 28 is the match funds for the footbridge. It's a cost-sharing program with the Bureau of Rec for the Pathfinder footbridge. They match 75,000. Mr. Brown thinks it's gonna be 150 total. So I think we need to keep that as is. Any more discussion on that? Madam Clerk, are you clear on everything? Can we move on?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to skip to the sheriff. Mr. Sheriff, thanks for being with us, and Mr. Deputy Sheriff, and your staff, thank you very much. Commissioners, we have a number of budget sheets. Let's just start at the top, which is JDC, unless somebody else wants to do something different, but I think the sheriff's narrative, there's an increase of less than 1%. The narrative talks about the most significant increase being in salaries and burden. We have already talked about the equipment requests being the intercom system and the Axon equipment and services, so we're done with that. We don't need to address that further unless I'm mistaken. I think that the request is a 3% COLA adjustment. We need to talk about that. I think that's higher than what we've done for other departments. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
That's correct.
What was the COLA for the other departments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we're not getting a COLA. They're doing a market increase to bring people to market, and then a 1.5% at their anniversary date.
Okay. And
It's a market increase, not a COLA.
Did the study include the sheriff's employees?
It did not.
So there are no adjustments for those, or does the 1.5% is that applicable to the sheriff's department employees?
Mr. Chairman, the sheriff, I'll let him speak more to this, but the sheriff has a cost or a step and grade already implemented in his department, which he added his admin staff to last year. So if you don't mind, I'll let the sheriff speak more to that.
Mr. Sheriff, would you please speak to that?
It's off now. It's gotta have that green halo at the base of the things. Needs to be turned on.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad, John. Everybody has problems with that one.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This year, we did not conduct a market analysis of where we're at. The market analysis that happened previously was pretty comprehensive on our side. I think we're sitting okay in the market itself. And my request really reflects a COLA. So we don't want to continue to slide down. We're in a very good place. I think we're sitting at number 4 in sheriff's offices for the state, which is not at the top, certainly not at the bottom, but it's a comfortable place, I think, and that's reflected on our ability to hire and recruit good people as well as retain our staff. So certainly the cost of living adjustment would reflect less than the increase in cost of living for the state of Wyoming during that time period. And again, it's an attempt to stay current year to year and not continue to slide down where we're going to have to look at a large adjustment and also see those the detriment of losing staff and through the years. So a minor increase in cost of living year to year, I think, pays benefits, and being able to keep your staff reduces those hiring and training costs to get new staff up to where they need to be. And again, I think 3% is fairly conservative.
Mr. Chairman, Sheriff Harlan, in looking at your request on Appendix 2, there's a note down at the bottom. So am I correct in saying that the 3% COLA is not reflected in your current budget request?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Sheriff, for the clarification. So that would be a total, in addition to the request, a total of an additional $440,438, correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Mr. Sheriff, the tough thing for me personally on this, I know that your employees are some of the hardest working in the entire county. And I would like you and your department to continue to be at number 4 in this state, or higher. The thing that is a little difficult for me, candidly, is if we were to do this for your department, it would, I think, very quickly be requested, or people would have some feelings from other departments. I don't know if you have a perspective on that. I don't want to put you in a bad place, but I think I just want to throw that out there, because I think that may be in the back of some of our minds. I know it is mine. And because the COLA cost of living hits everybody. So anyway, I don't know if you have a response to that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. One of the things that I factored into this was the statutory change that increases the law enforcement specific pension contribution on behalf of the employees. So if what I suggested was an increase of 0.9% to the employee during this budget, so when I factor that in, looking at not wanting to slide backwards, given the fact that we do have an increase in our pension plan contribution, as well as cost of living in the state, that's where I came up really with the cost of living suggestion of 3%. So certainly you have to consider all the employees in the county, and that's a big task. That's a lot to wrestle with. On behalf of the sheriff's office, that's really what I focus on. So as an elected official also, I'm elected to make sure that I can maintain that capacity and capability in our community. And that is one of the strategies I use. I believe that the sheriff's office in Natrona County does not need to be the highest paid. We don't have to have the best benefits, but we do have to be regionally competitive. We have to maintain the ability to bring people in, good people with good hearts to serve our community. And that is very challenging in the country right now, across the country. And currently, we don't offer signing bonuses, hiring bonuses, travel. There's a lot of benefits that we don't offer that other places are. And we've done very well, as I've mentioned before. I attribute a lot of that to just the quality of people that I work with and the culture that they've made throughout the years and that we continue to build upon. So that's it's a sensitive balance, and my concern always is being able to stay on the positive side of that balance. If we start losing people or we can't attract people, then we have to come up with cost prohibitive measures to try to close that gap. And we've been very fortunate so far. We do not have to add signing bonuses or anything like that. There's across the country, reading the publications, there's agencies that have signing bonuses of $75,000 to $100,000 just to sign on. So we've been very lucky. Of course, this is one component to a very large strategy on how to run the sheriff's office, how to maintain those services, how to maintain a healthy and productive workplace and work environment. And of course, that's all goes into that suggestion of including the 0.9% that we're going to have to give up, which would equal about 2.1% in effect of what would be an increase to the wages, which is again lower than cost of living inflation. But again, it puts us still in that regionally competitive marketplace.
Thank you,
Mr.
Sheriff.
Chairman. I taught at the police academy for 20 years, from 76 to 96, and I've done a lot of criminal cases, worked on both sides. I've been a special prosecutor, I've been a defense attorney, and have a great respect for our law enforcement. Now, I don't think we can compare them to other employees, other than that they are employees of the county. But from my experience and what I've seen happening in other states with law enforcement is a tragedy. One of them, I think, is in Colorado, where I think the sheriff's department in Laramie was running an ad on a billboard in Denver and got some people from Colorado that had quit their law enforcement agencies there. it's just an entirely different breed of cat. It's like the difference between a neurosurgeon and an internist. These are very specially trained individuals. Their life is constantly in danger most of the time for the guys and the ladies that are out there in the cars and coming here to monitor our meetings. So I just don't think it's the same. And I know that they're very intelligent. They understand what's happening around the country. And I just don't want to lose any of them. I don't want that sheriff's department to be in the same place that a couple of our other agencies are where we can't hire anybody. So I'm speaking in favor of this COLA thing and generally the sheriff's budget, only because for the last 53 years, I've had a lot of dealings with sheriff's departments and different sheriffs, and Sheriff Harlan, I think, is one of the best we've had over the years as being knowledgeable and understanding the needs of his employees. And I think somehow we need to get over this hurdle that you have, Mr. Chairman, because this just isn't the same as these other agencies and we, or other employees. And I'm very respectful of our other employees. I know that they're struggling also with pay, and that's probably one of the things that motivates me to stay on this commission is to treat our top assets as well as we can financially, understanding where our monetary situation is. But I think we have to do something like this, Mr. Chairman, because I just don't want to see what's happened in Tracy's office, where you lose these great people and they go to work for a veterinarian. Not that there's anything wrong with a veterinarian, but I'd rather they be working with the county, especially with the experience they've had. So I hope we can grind on this one and see a way to do this, Mr. Chairman.
So I think that one of the items the commission ought to address is the 9% increase that the legislature mandated. That's something that's beyond our control. And that's a 0.9%. I know that does impact the deputies. That does impact this group of employees differently than others. And so I could be persuaded to feel like the county needs to pick up that tab for these employees. Commissioner Laird, I agree with your sentiment about the importance of these employees and their training, that they are different in some respects than other employees, but I don't want for a minute to diminish the value and importance of employees, for example, in the clerk's office. I think our administrative assistant, Michelle, is a pretty valuable county employee personally. And I think that all the department heads and all the elected officials feel, and as they should, feel that their employees are absolutely key to the proper functioning of our government. So my feeling is that not as a COLA adjustment, but just this 0.9 1%. No, that's not stated right. 0.9% increase for the statutory pension employee contribution change is appropriate. But I think that this is not the year to do a COLA. I think next year, my feeling is that a study can be done, and if we need to make an adjustment to keep you and to keep your department at number 4 in the state, then maybe we need to do that. But that's where I'm at with this budget, in particular with this budget year. Commissioners Milne and North, I don't know if you have thoughts on this particular issue. Commissioner Milne.
I agree. I'd like to see us be able to do something with the retirement that, while not unexpected, it does put, a little crunch into things, for the employees, for the deputies and everybody. Sheriff, you've been in here, you've watched this whole proceeding this year, and you've been seeing us cut everybody, everything, whatever, wherever we can. Is there anywhere that you can give us some cuts? Or examples or whatnot? I mean, just kind of running through it on your admin sheet. It's not much, but, say, investigative purchases, you have it bumped up from last year's to 17, from 13 to 17. Yeah, it looks like you've never exceeded, 7,000. I mean, little things like that. Is there anywhere where you can kind of help us out here a little bit and give us some leeway where we can do things for the employees? Does that make sense?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Millen, it does, sir. And thank you for that question. It's always helpful, because when I look at the budget and all the things we do, and of course, the sheriff's office is just so up and down. So there's a lot of strategy and a lot of thought that goes into planning the budget out. So sometimes throwing out a number that needs to be cut off of the bottom line is easier to try to put where we need it. But certainly we asked to increase our community outreach by 2,500. I think we can cut that out of this budget, and we'll reapproach it next time. So we did ask to increase 7402000961, which is subscriptions. And essentially what we've done is, with 158 employees that work anywhere from 8 to 12-hour shifts, days and nights, civilians and sworn. Everybody has different rules and laws that governs how their pay works, depending if they're civilian or law enforcement. The pay period and overtime is different for those two. What we've done is implement a time management system. It's a component to our, it's the same software company that developed our FTO, or Field Training Officer program. We use PowerTime. So what it does is manages schedules, call-offs, call-ins, overtimes, vacations, and everything. So we're seeing some benefit from that. So the hope is that, and where I think we're heading, is that the proper management on the big picture of looking at the office as a whole, spanning all these different disciplines, we're going to be able to hopefully reduce overtime costs and still give a better product out at the same time. And a product, I mean services to the community. So it's a relatively small increase, but on the back end, we should see a significant benefit from that. So that's really where the increase comes from in subscriptions. And investigative purchases really is a lot of the forensic digital analysis capability that we have, and that changes all the time. So if we give a little bit there, I can probably use it out of a different line, but nowadays technology is so extensive. When we do our investigations, we have to have the compatible law enforcement resource to process that data and extract that data from the devices that we see these days. So unfortunately, it's a very complicated thing. It's hard to keep up with.
Mr. Sheriff,
Yes, sir.
I hate to do this to you, but we had scheduled to take a recess.
Yeah.
Commissioner North needs to head over to the shooting complex presentation now. I think we can give you a few more minutes, but I'm gonna interrupt so that if Commissioner North has anything before he runs out, since he's spearheading the shooting complex, effort. Commissioner North?
I understand the COLA. I mean, you got two of us that are currently up here that are previous law enforcement, and both of us have gone through, and I know in my previous life, working for the Game and Fish Department, that we constantly dealt with the issue of increased retirement and who was gonna pay for it and everything else. And we never knew exactly where we were gonna go. So I understand the salary side of things very well, especially from the law enforcement side of things. This year, I don't think is the right year to ask for a COLA increase. That's my personal feeling. But the retirement side of things, how much did the retirement actually go up as far as the contribution goes?
The statute is increasing the contribution in total between employee and employer, 1.8% for the next 3 years.
Okay, so, yeah, so basically 0.9 for the employees, what they're gonna have. I don't have any problem adjusting that side of ours. You know, we're obviously gonna have to pay that from the employer side of things, so, but right now with the way things are going, that way you're not losing more money. That's one of the things that used to drive me nuts. Seemed like every time we got a pay increase, we got a decrease in pay because the retirement system would go up and the health department, or the health insurance would go up. And so we'd end up, every time we got a pay raise, I actually lost money as far as how much I was bringing home every time. So I understand that, but that's something that I think we can look into a little more. But I think we need to look at that across the board, and not just for law enforcement, but also for our the rest of our employees as well, and make sure that everybody's taken care of. So, sorry, I gotta leave. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I clarify something really quickly?
Yeah, Commissioner Laird.
I have a great respect for all of our employees, and I think they should be treated equally in terms of how all of society handles things. There's different levels of lawyers that make different, completely different levels of money, doctors, hospital charges, all of that. So I'm not, when I suggest something for the sheriff's department, it isn't that I think that they're better people, because they're the same. We have great people in this whole county system, and I'd like to see them all get, at some point, COLA raises. The one difference that I've always felt about law enforcement is they directly risk their lives. And it's like I'm sitting here as a commissioner, I don't think my life's at risk. And I don't ever have that fear, and I don't carry a gun. There were times when I was involved in certain cases where the court allowed me to carry a gun. And I practiced a lot, but I thanked God every day that I didn't ever have to use it. But it's something that's on your mind all the time, and with this current situation, Mr. Chairman, I just don't want to lose any of our employees in any division that have been here and working and dedicating their lives to this county. And so I don't know what we have to do to accommodate some of these things. I'm glad this MRG is gone, because that gives us money that we could say, that I've always said, I'd rather be giving it to our employees. And so it's just a thought to keep in mind when you're thinking about certain kind of budgets, that and to the extent of the stress on certain of our employees, that it's different. All of them have stress. I have stress with this job. You even have more stress. I mean, you're doing a great job, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to see a different tack taken, and maybe this is the beginning of doing COLA for all of our employees at some point. which means we have to take a new view of how we spend money around here. And we have given some money in areas that there was a divisive vote on. It straightened itself out somehow, and I'm glad for that. But I don't need to say any more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Laird. I cut you off, Mr. Sheriff, before. I have a couple questions for the clerk in a minute, but just out of courtesy to you, if you wanted to follow up on any of the comments made, or when I cut you off, or we can keep going. So,
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Laird, for the comments. Commissioner Millen, in looking at how our line 7801-00964, our detention center under the detention budget, utility expenses,
you go on detention center and it's 7801.
utility expenses. That has been trending down, our utility expenses. I certainly don't want to trim too much out of there because obviously the jail has to keep going, and the weather really affects how we use gas and electricity up there. But I think we would be okay if we trimmed about 30,000 out of that line. So that would take us to 230,000 in that line.
So sure, like I said, I wasn't looking really for you to go through. But Jim, I was just trying to make a point, you understand where we're coming from, and where the other departments are.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Millen, yes, I certainly do, and I appreciate that. I certainly don't envy being on your side of the desk and you know, trimming across the county. We're certainly interested and willing to tighten our belt when everybody else needs to tighten as well. I just try to do that very selectively and strategically to make sure that we can continue to provide services. And we don't, you know, even though we do have some unexpended funds at the end of the year, the majority of those come from salaries that aren't filled, or for positions that aren't filled. But the trend in our staffing has gone up. Currently, we're 2 positions down, with one getting ready to swear in, and probably 3 or 4 very good quality applicants for 1 remaining position. So we're sitting really well as far as staffing. So you know, really hesitant to touch the salary lines at all, because then that really comes down to cutting positions.
Madam Clerk, turning to the emergency management page, which is 9-62. Can you tell us where we are at your fiscal year end for community preparedness through the last item? So those last 5 items, 8425 would be the first.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, to date in community preparedness, we have expended $5,485. Communication repair and maintenance, $54,136. Project Lifesaver, $2,499. Satellite phone service, $1,242. And siren system repairs and maintenance, $9,837.
Madam Clerk, on detention center 7101, where are we at to date on that?
$25,621.
toward the bottom of, it'd be page 2 of that spreadsheet, but still under 9-64. The second to last item is for clothing, uniforms, and accessories, line 8417.
36,472.
Mhm.
I see, 8214 -009 64.
Is that prescriptions?
163,849.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
On the prescription line, that is one of those that fluctuates wildly, depending on the exact inmate that we have in the detention center. Of course, that's providing that medical care, and those prescriptions are a constitutional requirement. So we try, that's one of the ones we try to ride out in the middle when we budget, try to ride out the highs and the lows.
Yeah, I recognize that on prescription and then the detention medical care where you can't predict at all. So I think that you need to be on the safe side. I was gonna say the conservative side, but I think you could look, but yeah, I understand where you're at on those big unknowns.
Thank you.
Mr. Sheriff, your budget is obviously, I think it's obvious that it's the most complex of the budgets we have here at the county. And when you came in front of us and made your presentation, you and I had a little bit of back and forth where I was asking about some line items, and you mentioned, as you did to Commissioner Milne this morning, sometimes it's easier to have a number taken off the bottom and then let you and your expertise and with all your qualified staff kind of look into where you can best fit those cuts in rather than us trying to do it on a line item basis. As I look at some of these items, I guess where I'm coming from is that I see about $100,000 where you might be able to make adjustments here and there. In addition, not provide the COLA, but provide the 9% for that employee match as a result of state statute. And so I throw it out there mostly for the commissioners still remaining as a proposed cut to the sheriff's budget of $100,000, giving him the discretion to apply it as he deems fit, and then to not authorize the COLA of 3%, but do authorize the 9.9% for that statutory adjustment. Commissioner Milne, Commissioner Laird? Commissioner Milne, you're nodding. Do you want to turn on your microphone so everybody can hear?
Don't want everybody to hear.
Are you being funny this morning?
No, unfortunately, the sheriff's budget is one of the most complex, like you're saying. It's also, we've got federal, state requirements to meet certain it's very demanding to try to work through. And that's why I was trying to ask you what you can do to help us in order to, if not meet your request, but maybe kind of meet halfway, or I don't know. where we're at, what we want to do.
Well, can you speak to my proposal, just in the interest of time, since I think we want to get over to the presentation as well? And I think you already got to ask the sheriff what his thoughts are.
I know.
And in a minute, you can ask for his feedback, or I will, but would you respond to my proposal?
While he's thinking, let me help him out.
Commissioner Laird?
Here's what I propose we do, because this is complex, and I forgot how complex it really is, and the different aspects, and Jim pointed it out. Another thing I forgot about was the federal requirements that he has on him, that sometimes we forget that other employees really don't have on them. And so I'm wondering if we should recess this matter, Mr. Chairman, and give the sheriff a chance to go confide with his people and see what he can figure out and bring back to us before we make any decision. Now, with respect to what you said, I don't disagree with what you said. And I know that you're very profound in what you've looked into as far as this budget is concerned, and it totally impresses me. However, I do have a different feeling about this kind of thing with the sheriff's department. I would like to see all of our employees get COLA. And as I say, this may be a step towards that, I don't know. But Sheriff, do you think a recess for you to go confide with everybody, take a really close look at this, see what other, knowing how the chairman's feeling, what you would like to see done that may be a blend of these things? Is that a reasonable statement by me?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Laird, certainly I think it goes back to the, to my statement on maybe giving me a number that you need to trim out, because there really is nothing in the budget that I would consider fluff. I don't budget that way. So everything has an intended purpose, and there's some strategy. So essentially, when we're looking at cutting things, we're looking at what can we do without this year, and in hopes that we can fund it next year, because we can only kick the can down the road so long. We're getting to the end of the road, there's going to be a giant pile of cans. The example of that is the detention center intercom system that we talked about, the equipment request. We can probably do away with that out of the budget request. If something happens, I'll have to come back and visit with you, because there's no Band-Aid for that. It's at the end of life. And so when we talk about trimming money out, there's adjustments in the service or how I do things, or trying to extend out, but that catches up with us in the long run. So just to go through line by line, really to try to trim everything out from each line, it's pretty trim as it is. I try to run it that way on a regular basis, and that's actually one of the drawbacks of running a tight budget, because you don't have much room to give.
So my question, Sheriff, is would it be a benefit to recess, have you go confide with everyone, and come back and let's have another conversation? Because you can see where the chairman is kind of aiming. Is there another way of doing this to get what you want? Is it, I guess, really what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Laird, of course, it's not a question of what I want. It's, what we need to provide services. But we certainly can, if you'd be more comfortable with that and spend some more time talking about it. It is a large budget. It's very complex. I can look at some more historical trends to see where we're at. I get some of those too tight, some of those lines too tight, and it could be very difficult come mid-budget. So I'd certainly take a look at it again. It's helpful if you have some direction on a dollar amount, what you like or what you need trimmed off of the bottom line, something to give me to try to shoot to, because we're really talking about pushing off something, a program or services or trainings or something like that, pushing them off for a year and we can maybe bridge that gap if we need to. But a dollar amount certainly would help.
So, Commissioner Milne, just a minute. The budget request I have is 19,197. Is that right? For your sheriff's department?
I think that's right.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, yes.
So it's $19,197,000. In addition, the request is 400,000 for the cost of living, 440,000. My feeling is that my number was $100,000. The commissioners that are still here, I can't tell if they're comfortable with that or not. But on a $19 million budget, almost 20 with the COLA adjustment, it seems that that's a number you could hopefully work with. I don't know that we need you to come back. If you felt strongly about that, I wouldn't object. But I mean, I think we're not needing to get into too much more detail over this small amount of requested reduction from the budget. Commissioner Milne.
Sheriff, I'm not opposed to you coming back either, especially if you're able to find parts and pieces, but with you saying that, and knowing that you run a pretty tight ship already as far as, what you budget and what actually comes back, what you return to the general fund every year almost. It's just, it's hard to do with where we're at, what you're asking for. We're not in that same position where we were, where only two guys were running Metro. That sucked. And it sounds like you're fully staffed almost. So it sounds like we're doing good. I hate to say it, but I'd be inclined with Peter. So.
Mr. Chairman, since I believe you know a lot more about this budget right now than I do, I'm gonna have to side with you on that. But I don't like doing, I would like to see if there's any other alternative. If there's not, there's not. But I think the sheriff sees it. He sees what we've done here the whole week, so I wish I could project the future. If I thought this, I'd be more, I'm gonna support the chairman. I'd like to support you as well. And I'm gonna ask one more question. Do you think if they don't get the COLA this year and they get it next year, we're gonna survive it all?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Laird, we'll survive. Yeah, we're, we got a great bunch of people working at the sheriff's office, and we're all tough. We put our head to the grindstone, and we'll carry on, without a doubt. My concern with the cost of living is that we don't go too far. We have seen that through the years. I've been here 27 years. We've seen that where 1 year becomes 2, 3, 4, then we're 7, 8, and then the commission has to look at a 20% raise. And that's hard. That's very hard to do.
Is there such a thing as a 1 or 2% COLA?
Certainly.
Okay, well, I don't think we've talked about that, Mr. Chairman. If that's a possibility, but your deputies and your employees know that doing the 0.09% is a big deal because it's not gonna reduce their paycheck.
Correct.
So they're gonna be happy with that, but I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if a 1 or 2% COLA might be in order here just to get it going so that they know it's coming, but be another way to even consider it for the other employees.
Commissioner Laird, thank you. You keep coming back to cost of living adjustment program for county employees. And I don't mind that, if we can afford it. But what I do know is that we have done that while I've been on the commission, and we'll keep trying to do that, Mr. Sheriff, and to our employees out there listening, we'll do that as appropriate, as we're financially able. And I think as our HR department, and what we're trying to have is this wage committee create a countywide look at and consideration of things just like this COLA. So some years we can afford it and it's appropriate, and I think in those years we're gonna do it. We can't commit future commissions to a 1% annual COLA or a 2% annual COLA forever. We can control what we control, and this year I'm feeling that we don't do the COLA for the sheriff's office. I think next year, I think you mentioned that you were part of the comprehensive wage study last time. You need to be, your department needs to be part of it the next time we do it. I know our HR department, Danielle, is working on, through this coming fiscal year, exactly these kinds of issues. And so I'm thinking that we're not gonna we're not gonna kick the can down the road year after year after year, because we all felt the pain from prior commissions doing that when we made the significant, what I think were significant adjustments over the past 2 years. So, I think that if you would like to come back and talk to us about the $100,000, we will invite you back. We'll try and find some time. If you can figure it out, great. I think the three of us are ready to close this particular tab of our books with doing the 0.9% increase as a result of the statute, not do the rest of the COLA, or not do a COLA, but characterize it differently, and then have $100,000 come off of your budget. Commissioner Milne, do you have anything to add to that? Okay, Commissioner Laird, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't have anything to add to it. I've always wished my whole life I had more money. I never seem to get the amount I need.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, real quick.
Yes, Mr. Sheriff.
So if I get this right, the bottom line was 19,197,357. So take 100 off of that.
Correct.
And would you like me to come back, or would you just like me to give the clerk a breakdown of what lines that's coming out of?
That would be my preference.
Yes, me too.
Come back or clerk?
Clerk.
Okay, and the last thing, I just wanted to mention too, that you will have a little bit more in your coffers than I had forecasted. So originally I told you that we would have about 700 unexpended, and I think we're just over 992 unexpended.
Well, Mr. Sheriff, thank you for that, and thanks for ending on a high note, and thanks for being a good fiscal agent of both the funds that, are provided by the commission to your department, but just in general, we appreciate you and appreciate that. Madam Clerk, are you clear on that plan?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you. Mr. Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And we are recessed until approximately 11:30 to go